Before we head to La Rivière, I'd like to briefly go over what happened after Nozerrois, and more specifically in Lausanne and Murten. After his stay in Nozerrois in March 1476, where he tried to restore order after his defeat, Charles the Bold, Duke of Burgundy, left for Lausanne. Stubborn as ever, he was determined to teach the Swiss a lesson, despite his humiliating defeat at Granson. I'm not going to recount the Battle of Murten. I've been in the area before, but never specifically with the battle in mind, and we didn't have time for it last year, so this is still on the agenda. But what happened there resulted in his stay in La Rivière, so I'll quickly give a summary of the most important elements. This didn't go very smoothly, and the Duke grew very frustrated. To make matters worse, he became seriously ill in the second week of April 1476. He looked pale, exhausted, and developed a fever. His physicians blamed the hardships of the previous months, along with the large quantities of barley water he drank in an attempt to stay healthy. It certainly didn't help that he insisted on sleeping fully clothed whenever he stayed in the camp. After several days, his doctors finally convinced him to take off his clothes at night and sleep in a feather bed. Soon after, he developed severe stomach problems. He could barely eat, and his legs became badly swollen. When he grew too weak to even stand, they persuaded him to move into lodgings in Lausanne. By early May, his condition slowly began to improve. On the 9th of May, although pale and noticeably thinner, he reviewed his army. Instead of wearing his usual armor, he appeared in a silk tunic embroidered with gold and lined with marten fur. For hours he rode along his soldiers, and in his foul mood he occasionally struck the soldiers who were too slow to stand in line with his baton. So this was his condition when he and his army went on to Bern. Before they got there, they besieged Murten. The main battle took place on the 22nd of June 1476. Due to a number of tactical mistakes made by the Duke, the Swiss managed to surprise the Burgundians. The result was an enormous massacre of the Burgundian army, with the loss of 10,000 to 12,000 Burgundians and forcing the Duke to flee once again. Now let's fast forward a few months. After his stay in Salins, Charles moved to La Rivière, where he attempted to recover from both his physical and emotional wounds. La Rivière, now officially known as La Rivière-Drugeon, is another one of those seemingly insignificant villages where history survives mostly in words and the undergrowth. Located in the Doubs department, it has a population of roughly 1,000 people. Drugeon is the name of the river that runs through the village. La Rivière had been high on my bucket list for quite some time, not only because Charles the Bold spent more than 2 months there in a deeply melancholic state on the road to his final downfall, but also because while researching this place I stumbled upon several rather strange tales connected to his stay. We'll get to those shortly. Centuries earlier, La Rivière had been an important seigneury belonging to the House of Châlons-Arlay and included several surrounding villages. In May 1351, Jean II of Châlons-Arlay ordered defensive walls to be built around the village. He supplied sand and lime and even allowed the villagers to reuse stones from his old castle. It was in this fortified location that Charles arrived on the 22nd of July, a month after his defeat at Murten. From Salins, he had already ordered his remaining forces to gather here in La Rivière in preparation for his next campaign. He would remain in La Rivière for more than 2 months. According to members of his own court, he suffered from a deep depression, one that, out of pride, he never allowed anyone to witness openly. The chronicler Jean Molinet wrote, "He was quite melancholic and was easily incited to rage after loss at Granson, and some of his personal servants said that from time to time he would take a book, pretending he wanted to read, and lock himself in his room alone, and there he would tear at his hair in great wrath and contort himself, while uttering the most anguished regrets and complaints ever heard, and because of this everybody feared to inform him of things that would displease him." It is said that he sometimes spent days without speaking to anyone. He had also taken to drinking heavily. We arrived in La Rivière on a gloomy rainy morning and parked near the church. Apart from a single road worker, the streets were completely deserted. The weather certainly matched the melancholy of a deeply depressed duke. There was no doubt we had found the right village. There is a Place Charles de Téméraire, a rue Charles le Téméraire, and even a maison Charles le Téméraire. The castle itself, however, has long since disappeared. At first glance, the medieval walls are nowhere to be seen. The castle mount has been completely levelled and sports fields now occupy the site. Our first stop was at the town hall, which also houses the Maison de l'Environnement. A friendly lady welcomed us and handed us a leaflet describing a walking trail through the village. The walk is wittily called RIVIERE-DRUGEon and its guide is a cartoon dragon. The dragon is in fact more a cow with wings than a traditional dragon. It takes you on some kind of virtual treasure hunt where you can search for a legendary fibula. But we had come to solve rather different mysteries. The route starts near the tennis courts. The rain became so heavy that I only took the camera out occasionally to grab a few quick shots. At one point the camera even stopped working altogether. We decided to shorten the walk and focus only on the locations that interested us most. Along the path next to the lake you can still see a few remains of the medieval fortifications, including the base of a round tower. Lying at the side of the road was a black cat, soaking wet in the pouring rain. At first it seemed to be asleep. Then we realized the poor animal was dead. It felt strangely unsettling, almost like some kind of dark omen. According to the local legend, a ghost appeared to Charles during his stay in La Rivière. The spirit was said to be one of the soldiers killed at the Battle of Mourton, and it foretold Charles's defeat at Nancy. Where better to go next than the church? The Church of Saint-Nicolas was built between 1415 and 1490 and expanded during the 16th century with the addition of side chapels. So its original structure was already standing when Charles arrived in La Rivière. The village, and in fact the entire region, would later suffer terribly during the 10 Years' War between 1635 and 1644. 13 villages, including La Rivière, were burned to the ground. A devastating plague epidemic followed, killing around 60% of the population, and with it came famine. By 1644, entire villages had been abandoned. We continued searching for more medieval remains along the banks of the Drugeon. Some historians claim that Charles attempted to protect his escape route by diverting the river. The only thing we managed to find was a small closed snail vendor trailer. It seemed quite appropriate in this weather. Didn't medieval knights have to fight snails all the time? To locate the castle site, we had to return to the town hall, which was once a village rectory, and explore the garden behind it. The far end of the garden occupies the site where the castle's square tower once stood. In the middle of the garden there's a slight depression in the terrain. This marks the filled-in entrance to an underground passage that once connected the castle to the church. Somewhere in the old walls there is supposedly a small window hinting at the existence of the passage, although we couldn't spot it from where we were standing. According to local lore, only hearsay, Charles the Bold hid the treasure somewhere inside this tunnel. It seems highly unlikely if you ask me. By the time he arrived in La Rivière, he had lost almost everything and very few people were still willing to support him. On the square next to the church stands the house, officially known as Maison Pellissier, though it's also known as the House of Charles the Bold. It was supposedly built with stones taken from the ruined castle after the devastation of the 10 Years' War. It was truly special to finally walk around La Rivière after reading so much about it. So what happened after La Rivière? Charles marched toward Nancy for what would become his final siege.